Jake Ferguson is one of 5 Dallas Cowboys who needs a strong offseason. We'll tell you why next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. He is Landon McCool. And on today's show, we are previewing the Dallas Cowboys' first OTA session that actually begins on Monday. We're going to talk about players who need to really perform well in these OTAs, including Tyler Guyton, Donovan Ezeiruaku, and of course, Jaydon Blue, who we'll get to later. But I want to start with Jake Ferguson because he got a big contract right before the season started last year. And it was the typical, hey, we're not getting a contract done with our star player. Let's give a B-plus player a deal instead. And that was Jake Ferguson. And he started the year off really, really strong, Landon. But in the second half of the year, not only was he disappointing, but I would argue that he was a detriment to the team. Wasn't making plays after the catch. Had multiple fumbles. Really declined as a blocker. Why is this offseason so important for him?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got to prove that he's worth all the runway he's been given to be tight end one. You know, they didn't go out and make a push for a big tight end this year. They clearly have at least one guy that's in the grouping beneath him that they want to see more of, or they think could be a good developmental guy in Brevin Spanford. And clearly, you know, they gave him that contract. They've continued to give him a lot of leeway, despite the fact that, you know, this is probably now 2 seasons in a row where I would say he was a little bit of a disappointment. You know, he wasn't exactly great in 2024, but he was so good in the previous years that it felt like, you know, you were okay with him having a down year. But so he really needs to kind of show that he has an ability to make people miss after the catch. I mean, that was kind of what his calling card was a little bit. And it really has declined. And we saw him kind of gain some extra weight to kind of get a little bit bigger as a blocker, but he lost a little bit of that quickness that really what kind of made him special. It used to be it felt like what I remember Jake Ferguson early in his career is getting the ball early in the flats and then getting upfield, getting north and south so quickly that suddenly you blink your eyes and he's got 8 yards before anyone's even touched him. And it just doesn't feel like he has that same level of quickness again. And it's been a while since we've seen that. So I've
got the numbers to back it up, by the way.
Yeah, please.
This is the yards after the catch per reception from True Media. As a rookie, 6.53, that's an incredible number. 5.99 in 2023, 5.24 in 2024, and then 3.74 in 2025. And to put that in perspective, Jason Witten in his entire NFL career never had a number under 3.74. So even 38-year-old Jason Witten was better after the catch than what 2025 Jake Ferguson was. And that's what's so concerning about his play last year.
Yeah, I mean, that's it right there. And that's the numbers to back that up. It's a 50% basic drop in yards after catch per reception. So, yeah, I mean, it's something where he really kind of needs to turn the tide on this before, you know, it suddenly is just, you know, and I think last year kind of got away from him. Like you said, it started out like he looked good and he was kind of turning around. He still didn't look quite as quick as he had previously, but he had a good early season. And then things just kind of started rolling downhill on him and not a good way. And obviously there were penalties and then the fumbles that happened that were just at terrible moments. And he just had some bad timing stuff. He could still turn it around, but it's been rough for him for the last season and a half, to be honest.
Yeah, and I was going to mention the fumbles as well. 0 in the first 2 years of his career. And really that 2023 season, he was really good. He averaged almost 11 yards per catch. He was making plays down the field. No fumbles at all that year. Over the last 2 seasons, 7 fumbles. That is just way too many for your number one tight end. And I think the other part that's really frustrating is that there were plenty of opportunities for him to make plays. And I'll give you a great example from week 1. There was a 3rd and 15, I believe it was, against the Eagles. Dak throws a beautiful seam ball down the middle of the field. into the red zone, and Ferguson kind of bobbles it a little bit, doesn't make the catch. Now, I think it's it was Reed Blankenship that hit him late. They ended up getting the first down after the penalty, but Miles Sanders fumbled on the next play. That was a huge change of momentum. If Ferguson just catches that ball cleanly, I think they go up 2 touchdowns at that point in the game. It's just those little moments where you need your tight end that you're paying a lot of money to be more reliable, and he just hasn't been that.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of why he was able to get yards after catch, and he was reliable. That was what his calling card was early in his career, because he's not a dynamic receiver necessarily. He's not an elite athlete in that sense. But he had enough in his game, and he was reliable enough that he was valuable as that kind of alternate guy. And when you take that away from him, obviously, you take away the things that you like about his game, what do you have left? I mean, I definitely remember us having conversations by the end of the year last year where it was like, should we be seeing, because Schoonmaker was actually getting opportunities and at certain points was looking okay. It was like, should Schoonmaker get more opportunities to see if he can find a way to push through? Now, I think we've kind of gone past that, but
I think
it's worth a question at some point. That tells you something.
What I just want to hear coming out of OTAs is that he looks quick and dynamic again. That's my concern. He just looks so sluggish in the second half of last year. And I know we blame the concerns in 2024 due to the knee injury that he suffered in week 1. But if you go back and watch highlights from Ferguson in 2022 and 2023, he doesn't look like the same athlete at all. And that's concerning for a guy that ran, I believe, a 4.8 at the NFL Combine. One other guy here I want to mention before we move on, and that's Donovan Ezeiruaku, who's coming off hip surgery. It's a labrum issue. Now, we're not sure if he's going to participate in OTAs. That remains to be seen. But I think this is a really big offseason for him. They're really relying on him to grow and develop as a pass rusher in year 2. And I think any positive buzz coming out of these OTA sessions would be much needed.
Yeah, look, I mean, the labrum surgery is certainly unfortunate, but the good news for him is that he got a lot of experience to play last year. Some of it was good, some of it was bad, but the point is that he got his feet wet a little bit. And so, I think he's in a situation where he's having to simultaneously learn a new defense, recover from the torn labrum, and then try to, improve into his sophomore year. And it's a lot to ask a young guy, but I think if anyone on that defense, and that, especially at that age, the rookie group, could be asked to handle that situation, I feel like it's Ezeiruaku, right? Just because he is such a veteran type rookie, right? That was part of the appeal of him coming in, is just his mentality coming out of Boston College. So I think it's important for the team. They've put a lot of faith in him. I will say that it's nice to get reports from Brian Schottenheimer where he's saying, "Hey, Ezeiruaku, you need to pull it back a little bit," because I mean that shows you that it certainly isn't going to be a problem where he didn't work hard enough for it. And I think if you're going to find a way to break through with all those things kind of working against you in your sophomore year offseason, I think he's the kind of guy that's going to be able to overcome it.
You know who that reminds me of? It reminds me of when Dak Prescott would have these offseason injuries, and the Cowboys had to really try to tone it back with Dak because they didn't want him going so hard in May.
Exactly.
That overwork his body. But you're right. I mean, they are really relying on Donovan Ezeiruaku to be a starting caliber edge. Not that he wasn't there at times last year, but Malachi Lawrence, I think, is going to probably have some ups and downs as a rookie, as you would expect. Rashawn Gary really tailed off in the second half of last year as a pass rusher, still a good run defender, but they really need somebody on the outside that can win at a pretty consistent rate. Now, we're not saying go out there and get 12, 15 sacks, but just somebody that can get you consistent pressure on 3rd and 8.
Yeah. And again, like, I think he's the kind of guy that he came in and played really good run defense, and we were expecting him to be kind of more of a defensive pass rusher, designated pass rusher more than anything. Right. But I do think that he was a guy that we felt like had kind of developed hand usage. I think that he can come in with hitting the ground running. I think with an opportunity to work with guys like Brandon Jackson to kind of take his game to the next level. The question is, like, what's the hip look like? How healthy is he coming off of that? And that's where we start. But then, after that, the question is like, how does he fit? How much reps can he handle? Where is his pass rush game relative to where it left off at the end of last year?
All right, let's talk about two players that just need clean off seasons. We'll get to those guys next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA Finals are here, and every possession matters. And if you're looking to get even closer to the action, FanDuel has a great offer to get you started. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right, turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. I like using FanDuel during the playoffs because everything I need is right there in one place. You can check stats, trends, and matchups before making your picks, which just makes the whole experience feel a lot more informed. Whether you're looking at player props or just following your favorite stars, it adds another level of excitement to every game. And it's really easy to navigate the app, and it makes playoff basketball even more engaging from start to finish. And we've got an awesome NBA Finals between the Spurs and the Knicks. I cannot wait. It's going to be so much fun. So head over to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Get your daily Cowboys fix completely ad-free by joining the Everydayer Club today. Start your 7-day free trial right now and get closer to your team without the interruptions. Click the link in the show notes or go to lockedoncowboys.supercast.com to claim your free trial. All right, Landon, let's talk about DeMarvion Overshown. And honestly, I kind of think this might be the most important player for offseason workouts just because he's had so many big injuries throughout his career. And he's going into a contract year. And the Cowboys are also relying on him quite a bit. Yes, they traded for D. Winters. They have Shamar James. But they really need Overshown to be a difference maker in the middle of the field.
Yeah, I mean, a lot's counting on him at a position in which it certainly is important that you have some solid players in any defense. Obviously the linebacker position has become even more important these last few years, and Overshown is definitely the kind of guy that is your anchor at least roster built construction wise, right? And it's a little bit dangerous because of obviously his past with the injuries and everything that's happened there. So this is his first actual offseason to not be fully rehabbing from an injury at this point, if I'm not mistaken. And so he's it's going to be interesting to see what he can do with his body, how he can prepare for him. Because even last year when he came back, he looked about 80% of what he was previous to that. So
and that's what I want to see, like a full year, like actually be like a year and a half removed from that injury. Yeah. I would just love these reports of like, hey, he's moving around better. There's no limitation. There's no knee brace. Like anything like that would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we need it. And I think the Cowboys, look, they needed a lot of small miracles to happen for this defense to kind of turn around fully the way it needs to. And you've gotten a couple, it feels like, in the draft with Caleb Downs. Sure. and maybe some of the acquisitions you were able to get. I think the next kind of small miracle you need to have is DeMarvion Overshown not only coming back healthy, but taking that next step to becoming, maybe a borderline Pro Bowl, all-pro kind of linebacker.
We talk about these harbinger players all the time, but if you just told me what their 2026 season was going to look like, I could probably tell you how the year is going to go for Dallas. And I think Overshown's one of them. Like if he becomes let's be even conservative, a top 20 linebacker in the NFL, I feel really good about at least the floor of the Cowboys defense. And that's what I'm concerned about. Is this still have a chance to be one of the worst defenses in the league? If you get competent linebacker play, I just don't see how that's going to be feasible, just because I think you've got more talent up front. The secondary should be much better. Linebacker is the one spot that I think is going to have a lot of variance. So if you tell me that Overshown has a top 20 linebacker season, I would feel really good about this unit.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, again, it's one of the kind of key hinges on this defense at this point is where does the floor and the ceiling lie with this linebacker crew? And to be honest, despite the efforts to try to kind of build around him a little bit, it's still really all kind of is reliant on where Overshown is coming into this next season.
All right, another player that's really key for the Cowboys, and we've talked about him a little bit this offseason, is Tyler Guyton. Not only is this a big offseason for Guyton personally, but the Cowboys desperately need him to be a good left tackle, because I think they have options, right? They can go to Nate Thomas if they need to. They could move Tyler Smith from left guard to left tackle and play TJ Bass at guard. So there are some fallback options, but none of them are as good as just Guyton working out and being able to leave Tyler Smith at left guard and Tyler Booker at right guard and just be able to maul people in the run game. And I think for Guyton, like, this is probably his last year of being I don't even want to say a locked-in starter, but somebody where your draft status still matters a little bit. Because once you get to year 4, nobody cares whether you're a former first-round pick or anything like that. It's a massive chance for him to really grab this job and solidify the Cowboys' offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think he's had some circumstance that's happened. I mean, he just needs a clean offseason, right? Because I do think that, and I've said this a couple different times, you go back and watch last year, like, we saw him in training camp really have some really good training camp practices, a whole bunch in the row, and then he had the knee injury that was the kind of ACL scare that ended up being not quite as bad, but still was an injury that he had to work through early in the year, right? He did end up coming back and playing for week 1, but was still having to deal with that. Finally kind of got healthy a little bit, and then bang, he had the high ankle sprain, had to come back from that. And once he was finally back, like, as the season went on, he started to play better and better, and he started to kind of settle into the situation a little bit better. So if he could just get through the OTAs and get through training camps healthy and continue to kind of progress at the rate that he was going into the back of the season last year, I think he can get where he needs to go. Like, he really showed you some positive improvements in his run blocking last year. I think he cut down in his penalties last year from I think it was 18 in 2024 to 7 in 2025, and specifically holding calls. He had like 8 holding calls his rookie year, and he only had 1 last year. So he has shown us an improvement. I think he's been kind of set back by injuries. I think he's struggled a little bit to play through injuries a little bit, which I think is part of learning how to be an NFL veteran.
Absolutely.
But I think he needs to kind of get through this offseason healthy so that he can continue to accumulate the skill set that he'll need going into the season. I do think he's got something. I do think that this is possible for him to be a very good player, but he's at a very key moment in his development right now. He cannot take another setback at this point, or you're right, he falls back to kind of the rest of the pack. And I still think he's probably in a kind of tilted, open conversation, competition with Nate Thomas in some ways, even though obviously they're going to give him all the deference.
It's also going to be really hard to tell anything from OTAs because they're not wearing pads. It's supposed to be non-contact, right? I think the only thing we're going to be able to gain from it is like how he looks physically. Has he added muscle? Does he look lean? Does it look like he's in good shape? Is he moving well? But I think in general, he just needs a strong offseason. And it sounds like he is healthy after a really just a wonky 2025 season where, I mean, think about, was it August where he hurt his knee and we thought it was I think it was Ian Rappaport tweeted it was a torn ACL, and then the Cowboys got good news that it wasn't, and then he made it back on the field for week 1, but it was clearly he wasn't 100% healthy, and it just felt like he just never could quite get to full strength, and it really impacted him.
Yeah, and I think that ultimately, you know, he came back from the high ankle sprain too, and he played well at certain points, and he started to play better. And then, you know, they just decided to shut him down by the end of the year to kind of give him some more, you know, deep breathing time. But I do think he's a guy that, like, you know, we need to give one more offseason. I think he showed improvement between his rookie, like a lot of improvement between his rookie and second year. It was derailed by injury. He has to find a way to get through that. But I think this idea that we haven't seen improvement from him, or he hasn't gotten better as a football player, I don't think that's true. And I'm interested to see what year 3 brings.
All right, let's talk about a player that maybe needs a better offseason, or just a good offseason, more than anybody else on the entire roster, and that's Jaydon Blue. We'll talk about him next. This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position that you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed sponsored jobs help you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping that the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours have already made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now, and you can get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium status that it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. We are discussing 5 players who need strong OTA performances. And let's get to Jaydon Blue, because it was really a tough rookie season from Jaydon Blue, from some of the off-season concerns or off-field concerns to fumbling. He also had the foot issue where he wore the wrong cleats to practice. Then he got benched for the second half of the year. That he played really well in week 18. We heard I read an article this week from Todd Archer where he said there was maturity concerns that contributed to him not playing. I would just feel so much better about their offense in general if Jaydon Blue could grow up a little bit, become more of a professional, and really take hold of that RB2 job.
Yeah, I mean, look, and our guy Stretch, reported that this was kind of the case a little bit, and got quite a bit of what's the word I'm looking, clapback about it,
a little bit of flack
flack,
yeah.
Which we get it, we understand too. We give flack to reports that we don't like to, but it sounds like obviously there was some pretty serious truth to it,
yeah.
And that doesn't, I think some people took that as a mark against his character. I mean, look, to expect a 21-year-old to be mature is probably problematic, right? So this guy had a little bit of, it's not even just like, it's about NFL mature, right? Like understanding what it takes to be an NFL player and
how to practice, right?
Yes, how to practice and how to be accountable for things like my cleats aren't correct, and like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
you're a 5th round pick, don't wear Louis Vuitton cleats out to practice, right?
Yeah. So I think, again, and we've talked about this a little bit, his path, and it was a little bit unique, and he kind of, it's weird to be getting into the NFL and it being really the first kind of situation where, man, you've got to actually put in a whole lot of serious effort to kind of even get onto the playing field for the first time in your career. So the word at the end of the season was that he had kind of formed a little bit of a bond with Williams and was trying to follow him along a little bit. But I think, again, the maturity there is about the consistency. Did he continue that path? Did he take on the work habits that Williams have? And Javonte showed him. Did he kind of take it on into the offseason and develop his game a little bit and just understand that, hey, your job is more than just to take the football and run it up the back of the offensive lineman and hope you get 4 yards. It's to get into the actual nuance of the position a little bit, maybe more than you did, at the University of Texas or even in high school, and understanding that your physical talent isn't enough anymore to be the dominant player that you want to be.
And I think it was our guy, Mike Fisher, who was reporting that even during these practices, he was trying to turn every run into a 75-yard touchdown. And the coaches want to see more patience just in general. And again, that's not uncommon for a rookie, let alone a 5th-round rookie. But what I want to hear coming out of OTAs, honestly, has nothing to do with practice. Like, honestly, truly, no matter what he does in practice, it probably won't move me that much. What I want to hear is, hey, he's more accountable. He's been here every single day working out. He's really turned the corner. He's becoming more of a professional. To me, that kind of stuff is going to matter way more than him looking awesome in T-shirt and shorts running around on the practice field.
Yeah, attention to detail stuff, right? Like not only in the playbook, but in his own, preparation for the season. And, it's again, like this is kind of what we were talking about, where it's like you listen for everything and you don't buy into it too much. But like if you accumulate of enough kind of evidence that makes you feel like, hey, hey, oh, he picked up a blitz. That's great. Like you're not hearing, situations where, he gets pulled out of a rep because he false starts, or he didn't know which way to go on a play, or that sort of thing. Like, I think that just the lack of negative data points is a data point. So I think that's what we're looking for, is a guy that, we're talking about clean off seasons in the last segment. He needs to have a clean off season in the situation where he's not making a whole bunch of mistakes, where he's showing a little bit more nuance for what he's doing, a little bit more understanding in what he's doing, and not just thinking, oh, I'm a playmaker, and when the ball's in my hands, I'm going to make it happen, because that's just not how it works in the NFL. Your talent isn't a delineator enough for you to be able to do that without having the skill or being able to follow the play as designed.
Was it Bill Parcells that said you need to know the value of a 2 and 3 yard run? I think for a lot of running backs, they need to know, like, hey, there's nothing here. Just get what's blocked and move on to the next play. There are a lot of running backs that struggle with wanting to turn every play into a home run. We'll see if Jaydon Blue in year 2 can do a better job of being patient in the backfield. All right, that is it for today's show. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. Make sure you subscribe and follow the podcast so you get all of the latest episodes. And we're going to continue to break down Cowboys OTAs all week long, so make sure you tune in. And if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Cowboys ad-free, plus members-only Discord access, and so much more. Head over to lockedoncowboys.supercast.com to join the club. And for those of you on video, we can send you the first ever 24/7 national NBA YouTube channel. And on audio, make your second listen the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.